Uh, it's my pleasure to be here today in Kings Mountain, North Carolina, and we're with Joe Headin. Joe Headin is very special to a lot of people, but to us at Western Carolina, he is particularly important because he was a member of the first band at Western Carolina University, then Western Carolina Teachers College. He was also a band director for many years in Kings Mountain. He's going to go into the North Carolina Band Directors Hall of Fame this November. Joe's from Sylva, North Carolina. He was born on July 3rd, 1921. And so this July, that'll make you 89 years old. Is that correct?
That's right. Just a few more days.
But what we really want to do is talk about some things maybe that most people would know about Western Carolina's early days in band. And can you just talk a little bit about what it was like when the band started and who started it?
I remember the one thing that really stood out in my mind was all those nights that we would have things at school, and I was a day student. So instead of staying in the dormitory, I went home. And we'd have a dance band practice maybe till 12 o'clock at night. Then I'd have to go down on the bridge and start thumbing.
To Sylva.
To Sylva, or either walk 8 miles.
And you grew up in Sylva.
Yes.
And
no band.
No band in Sylva.
I've never been in a band in my life. I just always wanted to be in a band. And every once in a while I'd pick up a horn and get back there and play it with the kids so I could say really that I had played in a band. But
well, tell us how you got started. You were telling me a little while ago about how you started playing it.
Louis Enlow hocked his saxophone to my uncle for some amount of money. And so my uncle arranged for George Tracy, the professor of music there at Western, to teach me how to play that saxophone. And I went up there and got one lesson. I went with my uncle on Saturday. He owned a bookstore, and he wanted me to be a musician, so he made arrangements for George Tracy to teach me how to play that saxophone. And every Saturday I'd go up there and take lessons and then go back home and practice. Well, Louis found out I was using his horn, and he didn't like that a little bit, so he paid off his loan and took the horn. So my uncle went to Asheville to a pawn shop and looked for a horn of some sort, and they found a clarinet. Well, everything was fine about it. It worked, except it was in the key of C, and it wouldn't play the music right. So I got to play bell parts and violin parts and all sorts of things on a C clarinet because there wasn't any music written for it. Oh, and it was Albert System. I wore out 2 Albert System clarinets before I ever got a BAME system. Albert System just had about 15 keys on it. And I believe you were a clarinet player. It had the octave key went around up on top. You could always tell a Albert System by watching that little key on top. And so finally, Mr. Tracy said, we just need to get you on a BAM, on a B flat instead of key of C. So they went back to Asheville and shopped around. Came back with another clarinet in the B flat, but it was still Albert system, had that little key up on top. And so I played clarinets like that for quite a while. Mr. Tracy finally bought a Pan American clarinet. They've got enough money together to buy one.
Well, where did you practice?
At home.
Or what about at school when you at Western?
Oh, I had a studio, all my own studio. I taught music all day long, and I was assistant to the band director, Mr. Tracy. I was his assistant, and I'd grade papers and teach a class. If he wasn't there, I'd check a roll and let him go.
Like a real band director.
Yeah.
Now, did you do you remember anything about the beginnings of the band? We're pretty convinced that Mr. Tracy started the band.
I think he really started it, and I think somewhere along the line he must have learned to play a little on the bass clarinet, because he had a bass clarinet that he'd let me play once in a while if they needed a bass clarinet part in a number that was playing. He'd put me on the bass clarinet.
Well, I understand when the band started, it, of course, wasn't a marching band to start with, was it?
No,
or a concert
there
band?
wasn't enough people there to march. There was only about 15, 20 people in the band most of the time. Occasionally they could get some other students to come in and carry a horn and make it 20,
Yeah.
25 maybe, but they weren't all blowing horns.
Well, when did you get the idea that maybe you needed to do a halftime show?
Well, that was when we got the new gymnasium, the stone building.
That would be Brees.
The Brees building, and Miss Reed came
Margaret
there.
Reed.
Margaret Reed came there, and she started teaching the girls PE and swimming. They had a swimming pool in there.
Still do.
I used the swimming pool some myself, and so Louis Enlow invited me down to Blue Ridge, Georgia, for a weekend, and he taught me how to twirl a baton. And that's one thing I didn't know a thing in the world about, was baton twirling. So he taught me that. I came back and talked to Miss Reed about it, and she agreed that it'd be a good project. We got about 25 girls in a class, and they got credit for it, baton twirling. And they did all kinds of fancy strutting and stuff.
And you taught them all that?
Yeah. And they'd throw it around their body and up through the fingers and all that stuff. And they got pretty good at it. And meantime, we got up to about 25 band members. It's all in that picture. I've decided to take these baton twirlers, about 25 of them, about 25 band members. That put you 50-piece band out there.
Still the same concept we use today.
So I didn't know much about marching, having never been in a band, but I'd studied books and how you can march down into the middle of a circle and then do about face and come out while people still going in. And that was the main formation we did, and marched down the end of the field. and counter marched and came back through the ranks, you know, a regular old timey counter march. And we stood up there like modern day bands do, stood up there on the end of the field and played the whole march. That killed a lot of time. And
Or were the students excited about it?
everybody was excited. They'd never seen a Western Carolina band before do that. And the girls had on their short skirts and all, and kick your feet up pretty high. And it was a pretty good show.
I guess so. Now, where did you perform? Where was the stadium then?
Well, they got buildings there where all the fields were back in those days. Did you ever know where the Indian Mountain was?
Yeah.
I got caught one night driving my A model over that Indian Mountain. But it was a lot of fun. But the football field was out there in those days, and right close to that Indian Mound.
Then they later moved it on to campus where Hunter Library is now.
Yeah.
That's when I went to school. When Chris and I, we both marched on that field. Well, did you, do you remember any of the music that you might have played during that time?
Promotion band book was, I can't remember a single tune out of it because nobody ever heard it.